I've been thinking about AI art lately. Now, as you can probably tell from the visuals in this video, my drawing skills are not fantastic. My creative output is mostly video games and music. Creative work is a hobby for me, not my source of income. I actually work in the tech industry, so AI is not going to affect my livelihood, at least not for a while yet. Given all that, until recently my opinion on AI art was, sure, I guess, whatever. But recently, I've learned more about how these things work, and I'm slowly realizing that they are actually really bad for the future of creativity, media, and pop culture. Like, existentially bad. For all of us in the world who like media and culture, not just for artists who might lose their jobs. Let me be clear. This video isn't supposed to be some kind of anti-technology Luddite takedown video or something. I have my own opinions on the technology as a creative person, but I won't fault anyone for thinking it's cool, and it's undeniably really fun to mess around with. I'm not going to argue that these have no artistic merit or that they can't possibly ever be as good as something a human made. But if this gets used to actually replace existing artists, we will be in danger, and we need to stop before it's too late. It's very common for people to argue these days about whether AI-generated images can properly be considered art. I'm not going to take a stance on this issue in this video. I'm using the term AI art because that seems to be the most commonly used term in the discourse, but I honestly don't think it's a very important distinction. As I'm sure we've all heard before, anything can be art given the right context. You can certainly imagine artworks which use AI in some way to achieve a particular effect. So, even if these images don't count as art by themselves, they can certainly be used for art purposes. But I think this whole discussion is actually a distraction from the real issue posed by AI art generators, which is more related to how these things can only replicate existing styles that they've seen before. These models learn by looking at a massive collection of images scraped from the internet. They then analyze these images mathematically to determine how prompts match to images, and they store all this data as a set of numbers called weights, which they use in a really complicated algorithm to generate new images that resemble those that they have seen before. I tend to see a lot of misconceptions around this by artists, who often believe that it is literally copying whole sections of images from existing art and collaging them together. This isn't strictly true, but when artists refer to what the model does as plagiarism, what they mean is that these models can only imitate what they've seen before. They are completely dependent on the data that is fed into them in order to produce their output. When discussing how these models learn to produce images, some people like to make the analogy to a beginner artist learning to draw by copying other art they like. They then claim that what the AI does is basically analogous to how a human learns, so obviously since we don't consider humans learning how to do art to be unethical or problematic, what the AI does shouldn't be considered so either. After all, human art remixes existing ideas all the time too, right? But there's a really obvious flaw with this reasoning, which I surprisingly haven't seen a lot of people bring up. It has to do with the fundamental difference between humans and AIs, which is that humans don't learn how to make art exclusively by copying other art. This may come as a shock to some of you in the audience, so you might want to sit down. But humans actually have these things called eyes. Not only that, but we have physical bodies that go out into the world and interact with other humans. I think perhaps during the pandemic, a lot of us forgot about the whole having a physical body thing. I know I did, so I get it, but we do. My point is that humans can look at the world around us or to our own lives for inspiration and create things we haven't seen in any piece of art before. And as someone learns to draw, they'll draw in a style that no one's ever seen before, because all humans have a slightly different style. No one can replicate someone else's art style perfectly, even if they try, because their muscle memory and the way they see the world is always going to be slightly different. That's the most important thing to understand here. There seems to be a weird discussion going on around the idea that artists inject some mystical human element into their work, which an AI could never match. But, in fact, the thing that humans bring to art that AI doesn't isn't anything mystical at all. What human artists bring to the table is the ability to inject new aesthetics and new things from the outside world into the universe of art as a whole. An artist doesn't even technically need to learn to draw from pre-existing art, even though that is part of it for almost everyone. The people who made the first cave paintings didn't learn to draw by copying existing art, and plenty of children don't start learning art by copying other things at first. They draw stuff from their imagination, or from real life. When I drew a picture of my house as a kid, I wasn't copying artwork I'd seen before. I was drawing what my house looked like, and it was very accurate, let me tell you. AI art generators, on the other hand, need pre-existing art to base their output on. Without it, they aren't capable of producing anything but random noise. And this is the true reason that AI art presents an existentially horrifying future which we must try to avoid. Since AI art only draws from a pre-existing pool of sources, it can never inject new life into the supply of art that it depends on. If we let this thing put a lot of artists out of work, and if the remaining artists start using it as a tool to work faster, then we run the risk of crystallizing our entire cultural aesthetic, freezing it in time. Without as many professional artists injecting new images, styles, and concepts into the collective artistic culture, artistic progress will slow down and less truly new, interesting ideas will appear. We'll be stuck with rehashes of the same Greg Rutkowski style forever. And I love the Greg Rutkowski style, don't get me wrong, it's gorgeous, he's a great artist. But once he retires or dies, it's supposed to leave space for a new artist to enter. This is how culture evolves over time. If Greg Rutkowski gets replaced by a computer program, new art in his style can be produced forever. No one will need to pay a new artist for art in a different style, or at least the demand for new art will be much less, which means fewer people will be allowed to work as artists since there won't be as much money to go around. This poses a huge problem because if the artists who do still have jobs are also using AI as a tool to help create their art, the stuff they produce will also be derivative in style and things will never be able to evolve. I hope you like how things look now, because this is all you're gonna get. And everyone loves how things look now, right? In addition, if we really let these things take off, once large numbers of the images on the internet are AI generated, the style problem will become even worse, because future AIs will be trained on those images too, not just human ones. This will only further cement the currently existing range of styles as the only possible options. And that's not how things should be. Future generations deserve their chance to make a mark on the world just as much as anyone else, and I don't want to live in a world where everything looks the same forever. Sure, we'll always have some independent artists doing it for the love of it, but you think big-budget popular media is boring and samey and unimaginative now? It's about to get a whole lot worse if we let this happen. Also, even if it becomes unambiguously legal to use these generative AI models due to fair use, they're filtering bad data out of the training set by paying real people starvation wages to look at things like child and images of violence. Regardless of the copyright implications of these models, I don't think it's right to replace artists and writers with people in Kenya paid $2 an hour to look at horrible things. Yes, that's part of how they made ChatGPT. Personally, I would prefer to minimize the number of people in the world whose job is to be paid $2 an hour to read. I would rather pay people to be artists and writers, jobs many actually enjoy doing. Maybe you feel differently. I don't know. Point is, we deserve better than this, both as consumers of media and as thinking, feeling human beings. So, to this end, I'm taking a firm stance against this stuff as a consumer and as a fan. This technology is bad, bad, bad news for those of us who like original art and media that isn't just a rehash of what's come before. If this catches on, it's going to make producing that kind of media harder and more expensive than the alternative, which means we will get less new interesting stuff and more stuff that's just a soulless copy of what's come before. Companies will only care about this if their bottom line is affected, so we need there to be a strong backlash from fans and consumers in addition to artists, so that it becomes unprofitable for companies to replace artists with computers. I encourage everyone to boycott movies, music, video games, and art that use this type of generative AI. Regardless of the positive uses of this technology, and it certainly does have potential positive uses, it is too dangerous to allow it to become entrenched as an art-making tool. We are already seeing this stuff creep into video games, and it's only going to get worse over time if we let it. We are at a decision point here. We don't have to let this happen. If everyone bands together, there is still time to stop it. But we need to be decisive. To paraphrase a different video on this subject, we need to hear AI art the same way we hear NFTs. It needs to become socially taboo to use these things. We need to consider it not okay. If we don't do this, we are risking consigning ourselves and our children and our children's children to the most boring possible sci-fi dystopia. Don't let tech companies rip the soul out of our culture to sell for a profit. Reject AI art. Thank you. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked the video, don't subscribe. I'm never going to make something like this again, probably. But I do believe this is an important message that needs to get out, so please share the video with your friends, like and comment to boost it in the algorithm, and lastly, please support actual human artists if you can. Don't use AI to generate your profile pictures and stuff. Use existing images or commission an artist if you need something custom. and especially don't give money to these AI companies or support content that's produced using these tools. I think that's the most important thing we can all do. Thanks, and have a good night.